One of the biggest struggles that comes with tapping is knowing what to say and knowing what to focus on when we are tapping. Now, I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing as magic perfect words, but there are a number of phrases that I use a lot in my tapping that make a huge difference in the transformation. And this is part 2 in our series of my favorite phrases, where I explore my second favorite phrase, how you can use it with my first favorite phrase, which we talked about last week, and how to incorporate that into your tapping. This is Monterastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 551, originally aired March 22nd, 2023. Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. Today we are going to talk about my second favorite tapping phrase. I give myself permission, how to utilize it, how to combine it with other things, and how to get the most out of it. But before we do that, 2 quick announcements. Number 1, we have a free 10-part guide on how you can use tapping to eliminate self-sabotage. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com, click on that big blue button, enter your email address. And if you happen to be listening to this in the website right now, scroll up in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see a blue button there every single day. For the next 10 days, we will send you a small bite-sized tool that you can use to get more out of your tapping to eliminate self-sabotage. And then at the end of 10 days, you can choose the tool that works the best for you. Second, I want to send a shout out and thank you to everyone who supports the Tapping Q&A podcast. These are people who voluntarily support the show so that we can continue to create these free resources for you. If you'd like to support the show and receive some amazing bonuses, all you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/support. And once again, thank you to all of our amazing supporters. Now, as a teenager in middle school, if you were out of the classroom during class time, the adults who encountered you in the hallway immediately looked at you with suspicion. And as a person who has spent the last 25 years traveling all over North America working with middle school students, on some level, I can understand why an adult might look suspiciously at a teenager who is not in the place they're supposed to be. And if a teenager, a middle schooler, is ever confronted in that situation, all they had to do was they had to show a hall pass to the adult, letting them know that they were in the right place and they were allowed to. And this idea of having permission to do something is really valuable. You know, when I was growing up, if we were going to go on a field trip or we were going to do something at school, a permission slip would be sent home, so our parents could say, yes, it is appropriate for you to do this. And this idea of permission is really, really powerful. So much so, it is something that I incorporate into my tapping all of the time. Because oftentimes, on a subconscious level, we are dealing with standards. And these standards might be real, they might be imaginary, they might be cultural, they might be blown out of the way. But internally, we have this sense of how we are supposed to feel or what we're supposed to say or what we're supposed to do or what we're supposed to believe. And oftentimes our human experience, particularly our emotional experience, is way more nuanced than those black and white rules. And oftentimes, those standards, those ways to live that we have been given growing up aren't necessarily standards that serve us. They might have served us in the past, they don't serve us today, or they might serve someone else and they don't serve us. Or, even more often, we pick up standards that aren't actually true. We just kind of absorb them culturally. It feels like this is appropriate and this is not. And the subconscious mind is built, and we talk about this all the time on the podcast, the subconscious mind is built to keep us safe, and on the subconscious mind's level, connection equals safety. And if I do something that alienates the people around me, I get pushed outside of the tribe. And 7,000 years ago, when we were pushed outside of the tribe, we would die. And I know I say that all the time on the podcast. But the reason I do is because it is something that is real. It is something that makes it so that as we navigate this, always showing up over and over again. And so it's good for us to say that out loud. Now, We live in a different time and we live in a different way. And we are allowed to have our own thoughts, have our own ideals, create our own standards. But because of this very primitive sense that is holding us back, it's dangerous to go outside of the normal structure. And so that's the reason why I love the phrase, I give myself permission to. Because what I'm doing is I'm explicitly saying it is okay for me to feel, to say, to do, to believe. It's even okay for me to be confused, to be overwhelmed, to be disappointed, to be all of the things. And last week in the podcast, we talked about I recognize the fact. And so recognizing the fact is about stating what is going on. And so regularly, I actually put those two things together. I give myself permission to recognize the fact I'm really overwhelmed right now. I give myself permission to recognize the fact, because there's a difference between going, oh, I recognize the fact I'm overwhelmed, and I have permission to recognize that I'm overwhelmed. I think I give myself permission is a more powerful tapping phrase as far as the transformation goes, but I give myself permission is this super powerful phrase in setting the table and allowing us to hear that in a different way. The I give myself permission is the line that my clients will most commonly comment on after a round of tapping. Like, oh, I didn't realize I could give myself permission, or I gave myself permission, and there was immediately this release. Because I give myself permission, it's a statement of care, of protection. Like when we got permission slip signed, it was our parents or our guardian saying, it is safe for Jean to do this thing. They were signing off. And so when we are wrestling with this subconscious mind that wants us to be safe, saying, I give you permission, the subconscious mind goes, oh, okay, I'm safe. And it relaxes. And it's such a simple phrase, but it's so powerful. And for me, I use this phrase in three ways most commonly. I use it all of the time. It comes out of my mouth if you go back and you listen to any of the old tap-alongs that we do here in the podcast. I use it all the time. But the three primary areas that I use the phrase is, number one, to be okay with where I am. And that could be the action that I'm taking, the place that I'm standing, the emotion that I'm feeling. I give myself permission to feel sad. I give myself permission to feel overwhelmed. I give myself permission to want to do this thing. And so in doing that, what I'm doing is I'm just saying, okay, it's okay to be here in this moment. And we stop wrestling with the subconscious mind, and that fear is not overfunctioning. The second thing that I like to give myself permission to do is I like to give myself permission not to know. I give myself permission to be confused in this moment, because we're trying to be safe, we're trying to be healthy, and not knowing what to do is the opposite of safe and healthy, because it's not a plan. I don't know what the next step is, and I'm overwhelmed, and I don't know where the obstacles are coming from me. But if I say, I give myself permission to be confused, to be overwhelmed, to be lost, to be unsure, to be unaware, I give myself permission not even to know where to start with this particular thing. What that does, again, it creates safety. We're saying, okay, you're in a safe space. It's okay to be confused, to be overwhelmed. I'm sure there is someone in your life who goes to you or you go to them where they need to vent, they need to get things out of their head, because they know it's appropriate and it's safe for them to say the things they can't say other places in their life. And sometimes we don't feel like we have permission to not know what we want or not know what to do. And so I give myself permission to be confused. The third way I like to use I give myself permission is I like to use the phrase to state things that I want instead. I give myself permission to want more. I give myself permission to want better. I give myself permission to want change. I give myself permission to heal, to transform, to whatever. So it's not just I'm recognizing where I am, but I'm giving myself permission to pursue something. I know that when I was growing up, I was very, very fortunate to be surrounded by adults who let me try to do different things. And there were people in my life who did not have adults around them that had the same opportunity, that I was encouraged to explore and to try, and I had to live up to the consequences for the mistakes that I made. But there was a container that allowed me to try because that was the only way I was going to learn. And so when we have permission to pursue, it makes it so much easier to step into it without being in a state of fear. And sometimes we can give ourselves permission to want something different and permission to be confused at the exact same time. I give myself permission to want something better, and I give myself permission not to know what better is in this moment. And it's so interesting. I'm not tapping right now. I'm just recording this. And I'm just sharing I give permission phrases with you as a teaching moment. And with each and every single one of them that I am sharing, I can just feel my chest opening up. I can feel myself sitting up a little more erect. I'm sure you can hear the energy and the speed of my voice as I'm sharing this, because permission equals possibility. And so the next time you sit down to tap, think about the things that you want to recognize and the things you're afraid to recognize and the things that you would like instead. And give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling. Give yourself permission to be lost, confused, overwhelmed. Give yourself permission to know it's okay to want more, that you're worthy of more. It's possible to have more. And so if you take, I give myself permission and I recognize the fact, and you take those two phrases and meet them together while you are tapping, you are going to be amazed at how much relief comes. And as that relief comes, oftentimes clarity of what the actual underlying issue shows up in a beautifully crystal clear way, which makes it so much easier to tap on it, which makes it so much easier to create release. So I give myself permission. I'm calling my second favorite tapping phrase. I don't know if it's my second favorite, but it's certainly the one that I use the second most. I love it very dearly, and it makes a huge difference when I'm tapping on my own and when I'm tapping with my clients. So give it a try. And I would love to hear how it works for you. Just drop me a note at support@tappingqna.com. I'd love to hear your insights as we navigate this. I got a lot of really awesome responses last week on I recognize the fact. And so I'd be interested to hear how you all respond to this. If you know someone in your life who could use a little tapping tool like this, please be our ambassador. Pass it along. Don't spam your inbox and send it every single person under the sun. But if you know one or two people who could appreciate this, or one or two people you want to share this with so you can have a conversation, you guys can break it apart and play with it, that would be super, super awesome. Our marketing budget is your word of mouth. And the really cool thing is when you reach out to a friend and you say, hey, I think this will make your day better, their day is immediately better because you have thought of them. So it doesn't matter if they listen to the podcast. It doesn't matter if they listen to me. But the fact that you've reached out, that's the thing that makes the difference. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of the episodes. In podcasting parlance, subscribe is free. Yes, there are audio things that you can subscribe to even inside of podcast apps, but this is always, always free. So wherever you find audio online, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you find audio, just search for Tapping Q&A. Click follow, click subscribe, and most importantly, turn on those notifications so each time a new episode comes out, you are notified right away. If you got questions, you got comments, you got a topic you'd like us to cover in the future, let me know. I can always be reached at support@tappingqna.com. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Monterastelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Monterastelli Tapping Q&A. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Monterastelli and Tapping Q&A.